Welcome back to this lecture. So in this lecture, we are going to build the Popover application. So let me show you the application that we are going to build in this lecture. So you can see this is the application that we are going to build. So when I click on this button, so you can see this is a Popover appears. So if I click on this close button, then you can see it's actually closed the Popover. So this is a small application that we are going to build in this particular lecture. So the first step is we need to start with the HTML part of the project. So here you can see I have already created the 3 files inside the Visual Studio Code. Okay. And I also launched my application in my browser. So you can see right now this application has the blank screen. So if I add here an h1 element and if I type here popover and if I control save it, then you can see the h1 heading tag is now appear inside the browser screen. Okay, so I'm going to just change my viewport to a little bit. So again, you can see the output as well as the input when I type the code inside the Visual Studio Code. So our first step is to actually add a class that has a popover class, means a div element, and inside of that we are going to place the other elements. Okay, so I'm going to remove this h1 heading, control save it, and if I just here, you can see because of the live plugin, the output is actually removed. So I need a class of button class. So here I will be using the button, and inside of the class I am going to type the name of the class as btn. This is the first element that will be displayed when I click on the button. So when I control save it, then you can see this is the button. So this class attribute is used to actually style the element of the button, and then we need an id selector, and inside of that I'm going to place the name of the id is my button, and after that we need the other elements, which is our popover element, which is going to be of type div popover, and if I press tab key, then you can see we have a div tag that has a class popover, and inside of that I also going to specify the id. So the id name is my popover. Inside of this particular popover div, I'm going to specify the another div. So I'm going to type it and as specify the class name as popover div, or I can say the popover inner. That will be fine. And then inside of that I'm going to specify the h3 element and then name this as my popover. Okay, and then I will be using the paragraph element. So I'm pressing the enter key and this will be our paragraph element. Now here I will be writing this in some random text. Okay, that is used here. This is just a random text I have typed. And then we need another button to actually close the pop-up. So for that I'm using here a button, and then the class of the button is button, which is also type btn, and then we need to specify the id. So the id is going to be like close btn. So this one is close. The text of the button is going to be close. So if I control save it, then you can see it's now appearing, but we are going to hide it with the use of css, and also the style of both buttons should be same. So we are going to use the same style for both of these two buttons. Okay, so that marks the completion of the code for the HTML for this popover project. So the next step is to add the CSS part to this project. So now let's get started with the CSS part of the project. So for that we need to use the style.css file. So here you can see our style.css file is already empty, and I have already linked my CSS file with the use of this link tag. And also I have linked my JavaScript file, which is by using with the script tag when I was creating the template code of the project. Okay, so inside of the style.css file, first I am going to provide the style for the body element to actually center the content of this particular project. Right now you can see it's actually appearing at the left side of the screen. So first we are going to use here a body element, and inside of the body I'm going to use the display property flex. So I'm going to use here a display flex. So if you can see here, right now the all elements is now appearing at the screen, means at the corner of the screen. So if I just here put the code and then I will be showing the output as well. So I'm going to make it here a little bit and just make it as a square portion, okay, in the form of square, the window of the browser. And then I'm here using the justify content as center. If I do that, then you can see the content of the screen is actually at the center, means the element is now appearing at the center of the screen inside the browser. Then I'm using here a margin property, which is actually from margin top. It's going to be like 50 pixel, the margin top property. And then we need to style the popover class. So I'm going to also increase its height. So we're going to type here popover, then starting the body of the element, and inside of that I will be using here a display is going to be like none. So if I do that, then you can see we are actually able to hide the content of the popover. That is what we actually want, because when we click on it, we want to display the popover, okay. And after that, we are going to use here a position property. So the position is going to like 250 pixel. So right now you cannot see, so I'm going to just simply remove the display property, because first we are going to set the style to this popover, and after that we are going to actually change its display property to none, okay. This is just I showed you for the demonstration purpose. We are going to use the display property once we complete the styling of this popover and also its button, its paragraph element, and also its button, okay. So coming back to our popover block of the code. So here first I will be specifying the width. So I actually use here a position. I have used here a wrong property. Here a position is going to be like absolute. Once I did that, then you can see they are now appearing like in a columnar structure, means one after the other, okay. Once I did the position absolute property, now it's time to add the width property. So width property is going to be like 250 pixel, and then I will be adding here a padding property. So padding is going to be like 10 pixel, and after that I need to apply here a border radius property, because we want our pop-up to be look like this, that will be showing the different browser like a rounded one. So that is why we are going to here use the border radius property of 10 pixel. And after that we need to use here a background color. So background is going to be like of white, because we are going to use here a box shadow property. That is the reason. So box shadow, and inside of the box shadow I'm going to use here a first 0, then 10 pixel, and then RGBA, because I have used box shadow in this way like many times in this particular course. So 0, then for 0 again 0, and for this one is also, let me first remove it again, type it, it's not taking up the shortcuts. RGBA, then 0 0 0, and then for alpha it's going to be like 0.2, okay. Once I did that, then you can see there is a nice, okay. And after that we need to add a property of z index. So it's going to like, it's not going to pop up immediately, because here I have not specified the semicolon. So then I'm using a z index property. So z index is going to be 1, because it's going to be top of the button, is going to be laying at the top of the button, okay. And after that we need to use the font size property. So the size of the font is going to be 16 pixel. Then there is a line height. This property is optional. If you want to increase the height of the line, this is a new property I have introduced for the paragraph element. So it's going to be like 1.5, which actually increase the height of the line. And the last property that we want is the text align property. So we're going to align the text at the center. So you can see now our popover is, all elements is now appearing at the center, including the button. Now our next element to style it is the button. So we're going to provide the style for this close button, and also for the button that is actually visible behind this pop-up screen. This pop-up, I can say that, okay. So first where will be going to type the btn. So it's going to immediately apply the style for both of the button, because the class of the both button, our close button and click me button, is actually the same, okay. So once I type the code, it's going to immediately take the effect on both of the buttons. So the first property is we need is the display property. So the display is going to be like inline block, and next property I'm going to use is the padding property. So from both sides we want a padding of 10 pixel, And then we need to use the border radius property. So border radius is going to be like 5 pixel. And then we are going to use the background color property. So background color is going to be like 3f, and then we need 51bf. So this will be the background color for the button. And then we need the color property. So color is going to like hashtag FFF. And then after that we need the font size is going to like 16 pixel. So after specifying the font size property, the next property is actually our cursor pointer property. So when we hover over the button, then we can see there is a nice cursor is appearing on the button. And then we need the button hover effect. So for that I'm going to go again type the code and just leaving the background color and also removing the rest of the code. And then I'm going to here use the hover effect. And also I'm going to here change the color code to 303F, and then our color is 9F. So this is the color we want. So when I hover over it, then it's become little bit more darker. Now the style of the button and button is also done, popover and the body element. So it's time to actually make this popover display to hidden. So I'm going to type it here, display is going to be like none. Okay, so it's going to like none. So when I click it, then you can see now only element that is visible to our screen is the button. So that marks the completion of the code for the CSS part. So our next step is to add the JavaScript part to this popover project. Now it's time to add the JavaScript part to this particular popover project. So for that we need to use the JavaScript file, which is our script.js. So I have already linked this file to our index.html file. So the first thing is we need to actually get the reference to the button, which is our this click me button. Okay, so the ID of this button is actually my button. So I'm going to copy the ID, and inside of the script.js file, I'm going to first create a variable of type constant. So here I'll be typing the const keyword, and then this is our my btn is going to equal to document dot get element by ID, and inside of the ID I'm going to place the ID of the button, which is my btn. Okay, and after doing that I'm going to again create the variable which is the const, you can say here a const my popover. My popover is equal to document dot, so I'm going to copy this line of code to save a little bit of time, and here inside of this my btn I'm going to paste the ID of the popover, which is my popover. Copy it, coming back to the script.js file, and I'm here pasting the code. Again I'm going to copy this second line of code and pasting it into one more time, and then I'm going to change the name here to close button. So close btn, and then I'm going to change the ID of this button to close btn. So in this project we have used the ID selector, which is the get element by ID, to select the IDs. Now we have successfully fetched the elements inside the script, so we have a reference to the elements. So after that we need to add the listener to this my btn. So I'm going to type here my btn dot add event listener, and inside of that we need to specify the listener that we are going to listen for it. So we are going to use the click listener, and after that we need to use the function. Then I'm going to specify the brackets of the function and then the body of the function. Here you can use the terminator. Okay, and after that inside of this we need to use the my popover. So we're going to update its class list. So this is a class list is equal to add, and when we click on the button we are going to make this as active. So once I save it, and if I click on this button, then you can see nothing is working. Now the reason for that it's not working is because inside the style.css file I have forgot to add 2 lines of the code. The reason for that I didn't add that particular line of the code is because I want to show this problem to you, how to fix it. So for that we need to provide the popover before element, and then we need to add the code inside of it. So the first thing is I'm going to type the popover active. So this is a popover. So when our popover is active, we want to actually change its display property from none to block so that it can be visible. So if I here set the display to block, then you can see when the popover button is active state, then it's going to display its entirely block, means it's going to cover the our button. If I come back to the script.js file, here we have just only add the active. So if I just again control save it, then you can see it's actually not changing. So if I refresh it, then our popover is gone and the button is displayed. So now to add the close button functionality, we want to set the listener to the button and we have to use the remove function. So I'm going to copy this block of code and pasting it one more time. Here I'm going to replace it with the close button, which is the close btn, and inside of that, instead of using the add verb function, we are going to use here a remove function. Now if I click on the button, then you can see if I close it, then it's actually going to close the button as well. So now our code is actually working perfectly fine. So if I refresh it and if I click on it, and if I want to remove the popover, then you can see if I click it. So that marks the completion of the code. Now our project is successfully developed. The only piece of information of the only code that is missing is actually this popover.active code, which is missing. That is why the click functionality of the popover is not working. So when I click on it, then this is not going to work. So if I remove it and control save it, if I click it, then you can see nothing is working, because we want to change the active state of the popover to log. One more thing I want to give you just for the experimental purpose. If I use here a flex, then you can see our popover will look like this. So you can add a profile icon, like the button should be displayed first in a rounded circle. Then you can create a profile pop-up by using this particular code. Okay. And yes, I'm changing back it to blog because that is the application that we want to develop. Okay, so that marks the completion of this particular project inside this lecture. So if you like this lecture, then please leave a review, because your review definitely going to help me to increase the quality of my future courses. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next lecture.